Did you know that there was a time in Pokemon history where Vaporeon was considered not to just be the best evolution, but one of the best Pokemon in the game? Today we're going to be taking a look at a tournament I played way back in 2013. We're taking a look at the semifinals and finals of a 100 plus player grassroots in-person singles tournament. This was held at FanimeCon in Northern California in 2013 on Black and White 2. We're going to be going over my team and we're going to be talking about what actually made Vaporeon the best wall in that format and how back then, you could not break this Pokemon and no longer gets access to these tools, but there was a very small time in Pokemon history where Vaporeon was absolutely amazing. If you guys like these sort of long-form content videos and you want to see more stuff like that, think about dropping a sub. We're almost at 2K. We're getting there closer every single day. I'm doing my absolute best to make the sort of content you guys want to see. If you guys have any suggestions for any sort of like tournament history or meta discussion, stuff like that, let me know in the comments. And without further ado, let's just get right into this and break down what actually made Vaporeon special, break down my team, and actually start taking a look at some of these games. So right here is going to be the team that I used for the tournament. This is way back in Gen 5 OU, which was a very different meta from Gen 4 OU. It's different from Gen 6. It's going to be a single 6v6 format, and I actually think we played this without team preview, if I recall correctly, but you know, it's memory a bit hazy. It's been about 12 years since I played this match. So this team was actually built around double Scarf users with Latios and Politoed. Very, very aggressive Latios right off the rip. Hidden Power Fires to check things like Ferrothorn, Draco Meteors for a big stab, Psyshocks to pin things like Toxicroak, Venusaur, stuff like that, and Ice Beam is just good coverage in case I don't want to fire off a big Dragon move into like, you know, a Steel type or something like that. Or I don't want to, you know, get wasted by like locking myself in a Draco Meteor or something like that. I really liked Ice Beam as tech on Latios. Sometimes I use Thunderbolt as well. Very, very solid tech in that format. I will say, this is way back when on Black and White 2. This is back when you see like, you know, I have Latios, Garchomp, Lucario. That's like a lot of weakness and, you know, susceptibility to things like fairies. Fairies didn't exist back then. Fairies were introduced in Gen 6, so Double Dragon was a really, really good defensive core back in Gen 5. The thing that actually makes Vaporeon work in this format is the fact that weather is permanent. Weather is permanent. You know, I think a lot of people think when they think of weather nowadays, they think of like rain dance, sunny day. They last for like 5 turns. If you just brought in your Politoed, it just had weather until the game was over or until someone changed the weather. So that's going to enable Vaporeon to use its kit a little bit better back in the day than it used to, well, than it can nowadays, right? So this was a Scarf Politoed, very, very solid. I really like Scarf Toad. You can just bring this thing out. If your opponent doesn't have a weather, you basically set it, forget it. Politoed goes down, and it enables you to hit like thunders from things like Serene, Special Sweeper, Blissey, and then the Vaporeon right here. This is what makes it really work. So Vaporeon's hidden ability is going to be Hydration. It says, this Pokemon has its status cured at the end of each turn if Rain Dance is active or if it's raining. And so what you could do every single turn is just rest. Every single turn, you would full heal and cure a status, which means Vaporeon is unable to be Toxic stalled. It's unable to be like burned or paralyzed, to be like, you know, gimped out of the game. And you can actually kind of just put up Toxic on your opponent. You have Scald if you want to burn things that are Steel types. You have Ice Beam to check things like Dragons. Vaporeon was unbreakable. There was very few moves in the Gen 5 OU meta that could actually OHKO a full HP, full defense Vaporeon. Like, now that we know everything that we know about EV training nowadays too, like, this is actually a pretty not great EV spread. We could probably take a bunch of points out of this HP, put some in Spadef, and make it a little bit more optimal, but Vaporeon was basically unbreakable back then. You're going to see this in a few of these games today. Last couple things here, we had a sub Swords Dance Garchomp, definitely a Gen 4 OU special, and you know, Life Orb, E-Speed, Swords Dance Lucario to just close the games out. So that is what my team is, and like I said, we're going to be taking a look at, what is it, the semifinals and finals of this tournament. This is a 100-plus player tournament in Fanime. It was a lot of fun, and so let's just hop right into that. All right, so here is the replay. The first replay we're going to be taking a look at. It's the semifinals from the Fanime tournament, and yeah, back in the day, recording replays was actually really, really hard. We're actually recording it on just a camera. I had to like take my camera, point it at my DS, and get these replays done. I believe you could only record one replay at a time or save one replay at a time, so getting these things in between games, it was a lot harder than you might think it needed to be, but like being able to document this part of you know, competitive Pokemon history is always good. I'm so happy I have these replays. So let's actually take a look at this and get right into it. You can see my opponent's team is going to be featuring things like Ninetales, Dugtrio, there's like Arena Trap, Latios was very standard, Fortress good setup mon, and then they have like Chlorophyll, Venusaur, Sweeper with Heatran. Very, very solid core for Gen 5, I would say. You have your Rock Setters, you have your Spinners, you have your Weather Abusers. So like Sun versus Rain in the semifinals, and this was, like I said, I think it was like a 100-plus player tournament. The Fanime tournaments were always really big in Northern California. And I think this was one of the bigger ones that we actually held. So we're getting right on into this one, and we're starting things off. Let's see, right here we go. There we go. We're getting right on into it. Holy moly. I actually think that I did a great job recording this, considering this is not on a capture card. This is me just pointing like a 0.2 megapixel camera like at my DS, right? But we're leading off with Latios, and this team always leads Latios. I think Latios is a very, very good lead for this team because if you think about what we have in the back, we have like Blissey, we have Vaporeon, we have Politoed. If anything's going to be threatening this Latios, because remember, fairy types don't exist, it's going to be ice attacks or dragon attacks. If it's a physical dragon attack, I can go right into, my Vaporeon and start blocking that because we're full HP defense. If it's a special attack, I can go into Blissey. If I want to start setting my weather, if they leave with their weather, I go into Politoed. So this team is very heavily on the flow charts, and Scarf Latios is just a great mon to lead with. We see Air Balloon, and so I think I'm fine to just switch up my Latios. So Latios goes right into Politoed. And here it is, going to set that permanent weather, take away the sun from our opponent. And we have a great pin into their team. Even if they want to pivot in something like their Venusaur, they don't want to pivot in that on Scald. They go for a Wisp, which is fine. I think they thought I was probably going to go into like Garchomp or something, because I think Garchomp would have been a very good pin into Ninetales as well. Honestly, I might have if they didn't show that they were Air Balloon, right? So they have to pivot off their Ninetales. They can't just fodder their weather. They need to be able to, have that little weather war, as we call it with me, throughout the course of this game. They pivot into Dugtrio, and honestly, I get a little bit lucky here getting a Scald Burn. So you're going to see we're going to clock the Sash on the Dugtrio. And what's actually really cool about clocking the Sash with Scald and then getting the burn, the 30% chance burn, is I don't have to show that my Politoed has Scarf. So when they send out their next Pokemon, they're not going to expect this Politoed to be this fast. Honestly, I think they should have been able to tell that I was Scarf because I'm not getting Lefty's ticks right here, but we take these. So they send out Heatran, and again, they think that they can kind of bully me, but I'm Scarfed. I'm going to be able to two-shot this Heatran. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Honestly, Heatran's not a good mon in this team for them. Against my team, like with that big damage. Like, if he takes all the way to the bank. Politoed is so busted. But like, we have Lucario, Garchomp, Politoed. We were definitely ready to deal with anything Heatran brings to the table here. So Ninetales comes back out, and they honestly just should have brought out Ninetales, like, right out to repin that Politoed. I didn't have any rocks or anything up. It was the right play. So Ninetales comes back in, and we just go for a pivot, right? We know that they have Wisp on the Ninetales, and so I'm just going to go into my Blissey. I don't know if they're going to be using a Solar Beam. I'm expecting Solar Beam here. They go for a double pivot, which is a very, very solid play in this situation, into their Latias. Now, Latias is a great Pokemon into Blissey historically. You can actually, like, super outvalue. You can see they go for a sub. They're trying to, like, outvalue Blissey, because Blissey's would normally go for, like, a Thunder Wave or something. My Blissey, though, is full special attack investment. We can usually break these subs. The problem comes when, like, they weave in, like, Calm Minds and stuff like that. Like, Latios Blissey is a bad matchup for Blissey in most situations. But I feel like I'm still pretty comfortable in this match. Worst case scenario, I think I would have to fodder a Pokemon. The fact that they're swapping out their Latios here tells us that they probably don't have that Calm Mind and probably that it's just sub. So they go into Fortress. We rip a Thunder, and I think Thunder is the right play there. I know it looks really weird because it was still sunny. But if we hit the Thunder on the Calm Mind turn and get the Para, that makes it so they can't, like, go for the Calm Mind, subs forever and ever and ever again. It's risky, right? Obviously, Thunder's 50% chance, but, like, it was one of those situations where, like, Ice Beam could get a small chance to do something, but Thunder would have just won us the game if it hit and got that 60% chance para. So Fortress is going to stay in and get a Toxic Spike, so not really that important. They're trying to save this guy for a little bit later on in the game. And they come back in with the Ninetales. Like, you can tell my Blissey is just, like, really not threatened by this board. The fact that they swapped out their Latias really does tell us that they probably don't have that Calm Mind, which means we can kind of just stay in here with Blissey. They have a lot of special attackers on this team. I don't really need to do that much. But honestly, there is no reason not to swap into Politoed here. Politoed here repins their whole team once again. So Politoed comes back in. I'm trying to catch them, like, charging a Solar Beam or going for, like, a Fire attack or something like that. But honestly, like, Politoed's just a great mon in this situation. So Politoed comes back in. They go for a Roar. They're trying to get as many Toxic Spikes up on my team as possible. And they swap me right back out to my Blissey. But now it's raining, right? And remember, our Blissey is full special attack investment with Serene Grace Thunder, which means when the rain that activates our Thunder's ability to be 100% accurate hits our opponents, it's a 60% chance to paralyze. So they go right into their Fortress here, rip the Thunder, easy peasy lemon squeeze. They know we have it. And they're going to have to bring out their Ninetales. And you see, like, every single time they do this, they're like, they go through this cycle. They're getting repinned by, like, a Blissey or, like, a Politoed or something like that. And I haven't even really used my team's main sweepers yet. I haven't even really used my Vaporeon, which I said is, like, the best Pokemon for like defensive play in this format, and that's because they still have that Venusaur back there. I'm being very defensive, trying to hold on to my Vaporeon because I feel like my Vaporeon is like my team's last get out of jail free card, which I will be showing a lot in the finals in just a second, but I feel like to get context for how this team plays, you have to get a good understanding of like the semifinals and the finals. So finally they bring out the Venusaur. They can go for a bunch of different stuff like that. I think Latios is a great pin into Venusaur. They go for the Sludge Bomb. Not really going to do that much to a Latios, right? It's neutral, but at the same time, like we are kind of busted, and just rip the super good Psyshock into this guy. Big Psyshock. Now that Venusaur's down, they have things like Ninetales and I think like one other Mon, and there's really not that many ways they get out of this pin. So Latios is very, very good. I think Latios, actually I think we are orbed. Yeah, I forgot. I'm not Scarfed. I'm orbed. My bad. I'm orbed. It's been a while since I played this, but Orb Latios is still very, very good. We rip the Draco Meteor. We do win the speed tag. There's both 110 base speed Mons. And ripping that Draco Meteor is absolutely huge. And now I'm going to be at -2 special attack versus Ninetales, but like honestly, there's not that much they can really do into Ninetales. Into Latios with that Ninetales. So I think that we're going to be fine to just like close this one out. I think we just hard pivot Politoed and just win the game, honestly. So Latios switches back out. Politoed switches back in. We get the Weather Ward that we would like. And it's funny, this person had a Sun team that we like absolutely had the flowcharts for. But if they like didn't even have a Weather, do you see how we just bring out this Politoed like once? And we don't have to play that like weird 50-50 pivot out, pivot back in, little Weather War minigame. We can kind of just win with Politoed. So that being said, Politoed does take a little bit of damage here, but we do have the repin. Goes for the big Scald, boosted by stab, boosted by the weather, and Ninetales, even though it has a good Spadef stat, I think does go down here. Yeah, so Ninetales goes down, and that should be the semifinals. And this is back when tournaments were like, I'm pretty sure we played this close year. I don't think we used the team preview, and it was best of one. So again, I think my team's really, really cool. We did not need to use Vaporeon because we had the right offensive pressure, being like a rain team versus sun team. But going into the finals, we're going to take a look at a really, really hard matchup for Vaporeon and show just why Vaporeon is so good in this format. All right, so here we are. We're taking a look at the finals here. It's going to be Rain versus Rain, and they have Politoed, Toxicroak, Keldeo, Ferrothorn, Latios, Breloom. So for any of you guys that have actually played a lot of Gen 5 OU, this is exactly what like the Smogon meta was back in the day. Like, it's so good to actually fight really, really good in-person people back in the day at these tournaments. That's why I loved going to in-person tournaments as opposed to just like playing online. Like, there was the whole infrastructure of playing like online tournaments was not around back then. You had to like find really good people to play against. So when you actually found them in the real world, it was such a, I don't know how to really explain it, but it was such an experience being able to actually play like high-level Pokemon in person. That being said, their team is much better than mine. They have the Keldeo, we both have Latios, but their rain team is just better built than mine. So we have an uphill battle against us, like Ferrothorn and Breloom and Toxicroak. Toxicroak is a massive check to Vaporeon because its Dry Skin allows it to swap in and absorb all water moves. So I can't Toxic it, and I can't go for Scald into it either because it has Dry Skin. So like I can't Toxic the Ferrothorn. I probably can't Toxic Breloom because we don't know if it's like Toxic Heal or like some sort of weird Subseed set or what it's really doing. Like, this is a very, very hard matchup, and we're still going to show why Vaporeon is one of the best Pokemon of all time. So look at my cam right there. I think I'm recording this in a Starbucks right after the tournament. Holy moly. So going up into the tournament, I wish I knew who this guy actually was because obviously they're a very, very high-level player using a good team. We lead Latios, and they lead off with Politoed, which is the standard lead because you got to get your weather going up early. Most people do like to lead with Politoed. The reason why I don't lead with Politoed is because I'm Scarfed, and I don't want to like lead with Politoed and show my speed tier by showing like a fast drizzle as opposed to like the guy we fought with like Ninetales last time. We don't want to show that like we're faster than them off the rip. So I always just go right into Blissey in these special attackers. They go for a Protect, trying to scout what my Latios is doing because usually most Latioses are Scarfed. So in those situations, they were trying to protect, see what we're doing, and then know what to pivot to. In this situation, they just go right to the Ferrothorn because they are expecting that same like Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave Blissey. We're just ripping Thunders here. We're trying to get Paras here. We're trying to hit the Politoed. It obviously didn't work. We also didn't get our 60% chance Para, so a little bit never lucky into the shiny Ferrothorn. But even though it is raining, Flamethrower still does good damage, being 4 times super effective against Ferrothorn. Really, really good stuff. And remember, it has a 20% chance to burn as well. We don't get it, but it's fine. We do eat the Thunder Wave, which is back in Gen 5, a 100% accurate move. So a little bit unfortunate. Also, I think it's kind of crazy that they're actually just going for a Thunder Wave into a Blissey. Because, most Blisseys would have natural cure to be able to pivot out, but I think it's fine. We eat the power up, not really going to be the end of the world. Big damage into our Blissey. Blissey does not have like the highest base defense, but we're able to soak this pretty well. Go for a flamethrower here into this Ferrothorn, getting some good damage here. And do I get the burn here? Am I gaming? No, no burn. But we do have the potential to flamethrower it next turn and get the win. So Blissey being able to wall this guy really unlocks the rest of my team, I would say. It makes Garchomp a little bit easier to use. It makes things like Politoed and Vaporeon easier to use. Like, we have to get these walls out of the way before Vaporeon can actually come in and have value in this game. So Blissey actually ends up outvaluing the Ferrothorn. I'm very fortunate to not get hit by Para. I didn't even want to weave in, like, a softball or anything. Like, I'm just basically trading Blissey for Ferrothorn here. And I'm expecting, since it is a rain team, a good high-level player in the finals. We'll be bringing out something like a Toxicroak here. Here's the Toxicroak, massive check into Blissey. They try to make a read on me pivoting to Latios there. So they're already like making reads, and they're already trying to anticipate my gameplay. And I know that I don't give them those. Like, I try to just thunder them. I'm like, if I can paralyze this thing, I actually could come in with Vaporeon and just Ice Beam it out, right? I was really trying to get that para, but yeah, it's just wasn't in the cards here. So in this situation, they decided to keep me honest this turn. I thought about swapping the Latios that turn. But again, no reason to give it to him. Just let him have the Blissey. Let me get my repin, and we should be good to go. So Blissey goes down. And there's not that much you can really do against Toxicroak. They have the Dry Skin that restores their health to every single turn. They have the Life Orb set. This is Garchomp right here. I do like Garchomp into Toxicroak quite a bit. You have the big EQ. You have potential for subs. We actually go for the sub this turn. I can't believe they were just going to give me this Toxicroak. I could have just rocked the EQ into it. They ripped the Ice Punch. And I can't believe they did that. Like, I really can't believe they did that. Like, I liked the sub there because the right play, in my opinion, from them would have been to pivot to the Latios on my EQ and then repin my Garchomp. And so I'm like, dang, like, this person's like really, they are outplaying me very harshly right now. You could say I could sub again, but like, honestly, what will that get me, right? So in this turn, I'm like, I need to get the Toxicroak off. They know that I need to get the Toxicroak off the board too. So they decide to pivot into the Latios this turn, and I'm pretty sure I do Earthquake. Yep, yeah, I take the bait and I Earthquake. And remember, my special wall Blissey is gone. I'm down my wall. I'm trapped in a pin where there's not that many things I could really pivot to get out of this. So we do what we can, and we go to Vaporeon here. And let's see what happens when we go to Vaporeon and eat the Draco Meteor. Big Draco Meteor here. Does not KO. Does not KO Vaporeon. Does not KO, and they get a -2, and then after these lefties, you can see Vaporeon is going to be able to restore a ton of health, right? Absolutely massive. So they probably would not have gotten that KO if they went for this again. They go back to the Toxicroak, which is a much better play in my opinion. We get a free rest off. We have the Hydration, which is going to fully wake us up and heal us. It's so good. And now it's Vaporeon versus Toxicroak. And honestly, this is not a good matchup for Vaporeon. There's only one thing Vaporeon can do to get out of this situation. They go for their Drain Punch, right? Get some good health restoration, even though they don't really need it. It's Life Orb, it's good damage. Look how much damage we didn't take. And we just go for Ice Beams. We need to freeze. It's a 10% chance. If we can freeze this Toxicroak, we can win this game, and we do get that first freeze on Toxicroak. Honestly, there is a situation here where even though they have Dry Skin, the fact that they have like Life Orb and stuff like that and using Drain Punch, there is a situation where if I actually just double crit my Ice Beam, I also would have been able to play out. But I like this play. Just locking in, full sending the Vaporeon here. To potentially be able to take out this Toxicroak, and I'm so fortunate I got this Ice Beam here. It's like really bad matchup, and you know, we just had to lock in and potentially we stuck to our guns, right? We kept them honest. Same thing we did with the Blissey there. We're trying to get this Toxicroak off the board. We go for another Ice Beam here, and we finally almost take out the Toxicroak. Not that much they can really do here. The cool thing also as well, we're getting leftovers ticks this whole time, so we're getting a good amount of health restored. We can outvalue that Latios since we know it has to really go for those big Dracos, so we can just pop one rest and let the Latios go to -2. And in this situation, remember, they had Toxicroak to check Vaporeon, they had Ferrothorn to check Vaporeon, they have Breloom to check Vaporeon. Like, Vaporeon's out here, and it's just completely walling like everything that our opponent's throwing at it. They decided to come in with their Breloom here, and if they wanted to Spore, which would normally be a good move here, we would just wake up at the end of every single turn, so they would just be wasting time and we'd be getting leftovers recovery. So they decided to just rip the Bullet Seed, easy peasy rip the Bullet Seed, and they only get a 2-hit. Vaporeon busted. Vaporeon busted. And they take Life Orb on that too, as Life Orb boosted Bullet Seed. There was no loaded dice back in the game back in the day. And we take it out in one hit. Not only can we soak the damage, we can deal the damage. Vaporeon checked like all of its checks and walled everything. And remember, Vaporeon like ate that Draco and rested to like get out of this pin. That's so crazy. They go with the Surf here. I don't remember if this is like Orb or Specs Keldeo, but Keldeo's a good mon, so you know. I think Keldeo might have gotten put to Uber in that gen. I'm trying to remember. But Vaporeon finally goes down. But now we have the repin. Like, Latios outspeeds Keldeo. Latios is good into their Latios. We're in a pretty good spot. They don't have Ferrothorn anymore. So they pivot out the Keldeo here. They pivot out Keldeo for Politoed, which is fine. We need to stick damage on this Politoed as well. So we go for that, and we just go for a big Psyshock here. Psyshock's pretty standard here. Politoed's usually built pretty defensive, so, like, it's able to eat this damage pretty well. And, yeah, we got Life Orb here. Do I Draco? Am I Draco in here? I should Draco here. You should just get this thing off the board because I don't want to eat that Ice Beam. Let's see. Thunderbolt. Oh, I forgot I have Thunderbolt in this thing. Yeah. I have Thunderbolt instead of, I think, one of my hidden powers or something like that. So, yeah, we get that KO on the Politoed. I love Thunderbolt. It's there for, like, a couple... It's there for Gyarados, I think. So, Gyarados just isn't as big of a threat, so I don't have to rip Dracos into it. So, Politoed goes down, and Latios comes back in. And in this situation, I'm thinking to myself, okay... They're going to go for a Draco, and I'm pretty sure they were Scarfed, right? So they Draco to put themselves at -2, and they have to Draco because they don't carry that, like, Ice Beam or other tech on their Latios, right? So my Latios goes down. I'm able to now bring out my Lucario here. And because their Latios is at -2, it's probably not going to be able to break Lucario even after a Rock's Tick. Lucario's not the healthiest Pokemon, but, like, you could Psyshock me, I'll live. So they have to pivot here. They pivot out into their Keldeo. I think this is their last 2 Mons. And on that pivot... I've waited all this time. We popped the big SD, baby. And this is a Life Orb Lucario. We're not sashed. We're Life Orb E-Speed Lucario. I remember playing this. When I hit this E-Speed into the Keldeo, I think I crit this one, right? I'm pretty sure I crit. And he's like, ah! And I'm like, bro, it's Swords Dance Life Orb. Like, there's no way Keldeo was living that. No way at all it was living it. Latios comes back in last Mon, and I'm pretty sure we know that, like, we would have KO'd the Keldeo because, like, we non-crit this E-Speed into this Latios and get the win. And that was the finals. I think what I got for winning this tournament, it was a free-to-enter tournament. That's how tournaments used to be back in the day. I got, like, a bunch of, like, gift cards to other stuff at the convention, some plushies, stuff like that. But like I was talking about, it's such a, you know, gratifying experience being able to play like high level Pokemon in person. This person like made reads, they played to their outs, they did everything possible to leverage the fact that they had the better matchup into me, but what they didn't have was a Vaporeon. They didn't have Vaporeon. They brought all the checks for Vaporeon. Like, Vaporeon's not good into a single one of those Mons. And we were able to like check it. Like, oh, I think that's so nice, right? I think that's so nice. And it just shows that like, if you want to like build a team around your favorites, you could back in the day. Now remember, nowadays hydration is still an ability, but weather is not permanent. So you'd have to like put Rain Dance on your Vaporeon to utilize this tech. Nowadays power creep's a little bit out of control with how many like Paradox Pokemon and other restricteds and stuff like that are running around. But this was a really, really cool time in Pokemon history where you were able to utilize a lesser used Pokemon in Vaporeon and absolutely dominate the meta. If you guys like videos like this, please think about letting me know, and I'll try and make some more. I definitely can review other tournaments I've gone to. I have a lot of tournament VODs on one of my other channels where I can review, you know, Gen 6 singles tournaments, Gen 7 singles tournaments. I might even have some Gen 4 singles tournaments somewhere, but the game was so complex back in the day, especially like in-person events, and I think that it needs more documentation, needs to be brought to the surface a little bit more often. So if you guys like this stuff, let me know in the comments. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out. I'll see you guys next time.